Our guest today is a real Israeli hero. On October the 7th, even though he was in his 50s, he went down to volunteer and spent most of this war in the Gaza Strip as a medic, even though professionally he's a tour guide, an educator, a writer. Welcome to the JNS studio, Dr. Tuvia Book.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about October 7th and what happened.
Okay, October the 7th, the day that will live in Israel's infamy. Anyone who loves Israel and anyone who was in Israel and cares about Israel remember exactly where they were on 6:29 in the morning. I happened to be in Sleepy Modin, my hometown, when the first sirens went and went and went and went. And as the day progressed and the numbers started pouring in, like many of us, I felt the same emotion, shock, anger, especially a lot of anger, and just total incredulity that such a thing could happen when we have a state of Israel. Never again was supposed to be never again. And my immediate thought is, what can I do? This is the ethos I've been raised on. The first mitzvah, the first commandment the Jews got was lech lecha. It's not enough to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. And as a young 18-year-old serving as a lone soldier in Givati, my big lesson in basic training was the mishu lesson. You can't always say mishu acher. If it's important enough, you have to get up and do it yourself. So my first thought was, I'm a trained combat medic. Nachon, it's true that I had not been in the army since 2006, the Second Lebanon War, when I officially finished my reserve service, 15 years. However, I felt I had to do something. Being a medic is like riding a bike. You don't forget it. I'd also volunteered with MADA on the ambulances afterwards and kept up with the knowledge. Thank God I'm still fit. That's what happens being a tour guide, running up and down mountains. And I heard a rumor, and that's the way Israel works. I heard a rumor that there was a base somewhere in the Negev where they're looking for trained combat medical personnel because Israel is going to have to respond to this calamity, this catastrophe. So I got the Waze coordinates, went down to the basement, dusted off my old uniform I hadn't worn for 15 years because everyone always keeps one just in case. This was the just in case moment. This is the Rega Shel Emet, the moment of truth. So first of all, it's still fit, which is quite unbelievable. And second of all, I literally packed a backpack with a sleeping bag, a change of clothes, some toiletries, put in the Waze coordinates, headed down south based on a rumor. I got to the base and I realized that it was Bashert because it was right next to my old basic training base. So I'd completed a circle many decades later. And the first thing they said when I got there is, where are your papers? I said, I don't have any. Do you have a call up? Don't have any. You can't get in. So one thing as Israel veterans know is that in Israel, no doesn't actually mean no. And after a little bit of negotiating, a few minutes later, I was in the base. Then they were never going to find me because it's, where's Wally? Everyone walking around in olive green uniforms. And I spent the next hour or so literally going from unit to unit, selling myself. And eventually I came upon a unit, the unit that I'm in now, which is called the Palma, which stands for Plugat Lichima Merchavet Refuit, bit of a mouthful, which is basically a medical combat extraction unit who works with the 669, the 669 unit. They were impressed with me. They interviewed me. They checked out my medical knowledge. And I think the word they used was enthusiastic. And they said, we'll take you. Just go and deal with the army bureaucrats at Shalishut.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you there because for the next 2 years, you and your unit saved hundreds, thousands of lives, including that of a famous Israeli. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, our unit basically has revolutionized combat medical medicine, and I'm actually writing a book about it, or written a book about it, which will be coming out in a couple of months, all about that. And the way we did it was speed, efficiency, medical technology, and of course the professionalism of the unit. And the idea was to do something which had never been done before, which is to break the golden hour. People thought it was impossible to extract from the battlefield to an OR in a hospital less than an hour. We have proved that is not the case. So last January, the first January of the war, we were called in for a mass casualty event in Gaza. And when we got there, the scene was catastrophic. There was literally dead soldiers littered around, massive explosion of the combat engineer unit and the Sakravit. And one of the bodies, who we didn't know who it was, who was lying literally amidst a pile of corpses, was later we found out was Idan Ahmedi, the Israeli singer, the Israeli actor. When we got there, we did not know who it was. He'd literally been, his shirt was blown open, his dog tags were off, there's no ID anywhere. And initially, the first nanosecond, we thought he was just like the people next to him, unfortunately passed on. But one of the doctors found a slight pulse, even though he was unconscious, and and not breathing, and we was all over him. And it took a while, and using our technology, it's scanning, using real blood, manually opening his airway, and only by the third helicopter was he actually evacuated. And we wrote on his forehead, anonymous 27. He's actually 37, but very fit. And we didn't know who it was. It was just a holy soldier, and that's what we're there for, to save lives. And only we found out the next day who it actually was. And we had an emotional reunion a couple of weeks ago in Jerusalem.
Amazing. And you're in Jerusalem today, but let's hear a little bit more about you and where your accent is from, and how did you come to Israel in the first place as a lone soldier?
Okay, so I have had the honor to have attended the same alma mater as you, Carmel College in Durban, Zecher Livracha. We went to the same high school in Durban, South Africa. My accent is a bit of a combo between England and South Africa, because I spent my entire childhood as a wandering Jew. I'm a PK, a preacher's kid. Father's a rabbi. So every 5 years or 4 years or so, we moved between the UK and South Africa till I was 17. And then when I was 17, I came to Israel for a gap year with my youth movement, B'nai Kiva. And that ended up being my change of my entire life, and ended me taking the road less travel, joining the IDF as a lone soldier and making Aliyah.
And you haven't looked back. I mean, among other things, you taught at the Alexander Mas High School, and you have written quite extensively.
Yes, that's right. So I did a course after the army as a tour guide. So I'm a licensed tour guide, an educator. I have a doctorate in education. And I had some of the best years of my life teaching Alexander Mas High School in Israel, which is actually, it's now sponsored by the JNF, where American and Australian kids come in and spend 2 months, sometimes longer, studying and touring around Israel. And I've written for Corinne until now, and right now I'm going to be writing a book for Geffen about Jewish history and Zionism, which really are the subjects which most day school graduates are actually seriously ignorant in. Most people who finish 12 years of day school in diaspora cannot speak Hebrew, know very little about Jewish history, and very little about Israel.
So tell me more about your book, and when can we expect it to be published?
Oh, because the book apparently will be published in the next couple of months, according to the publisher, Geffen. And I was commissioned to write it because of the work my unit does in the army, the Palmar, the IDF. The book will be titled Palmar. That's the main headline. And it's basically what we've done is been a game changer. The people in the unit, I thought I had a crazy story. It turns out everyone has a crazy story. It's an all-volunteer unit, literally made up of a cross-section of Israeli society. There's Jews, there's non-Jews, left-wing, right-wing, religious, secular, new immigrants, veteran Israelis, men, women, and we're all there for one purpose and one purpose alone. As soon as we put that uniform on, all our differences melt away, and we focus on what we have in common, which is to save the lives of the holy soldiers. And that's what the book is about. It's about A, the people in the unit, B, the work the unit does, and C, is explaining exactly how we do it. We've had military doctors coming from all over the world, from NATO, the United States, just to watch and examine and learn from the work of our unit. It's important in the times of doom and gloom also to spread out the wonder and light that Israel's giving to the world, especially the medical field.
I mean, a lot of people, especially abroad, don't hear the side of Israel. Where do you think we're failing, or Israel is failing, in presenting its narrative, its story more effectively?
I have a double answer for that one. A is Israel's failing in the people who are presenting the narrative. There are many, many eloquent English speakers, native English speakers in Israel. Those are the ones who should be presenting it. With the greatest respect to my Israeli brothers and sisters, when you have someone standing in front of a microphone saying, we must do, when I was in Tzal, that is not the way to represent it. We have extremely elegant spokespeople for Israel, who live in Israel, who are native speakers, and who are intelligent, and who are absolutely able to stand in front of the world cameras. We don't need jaded career politicians who cannot master the English language to make the case of Israel. That's A. B, I've just recently finished guiding a group of Canadian investors who yesterday went to the Israeli Foreign Ministry for a debriefing, and that's exactly what happened. They had Israelis going, we must do this, and one of them said that that's not what we should be doing. We should have eloquent speakers, and we should also be talking about how Israel is not just fighting a war against Hamas, how Israel's a bulwark as as Douglas Murray mentions, of Western Judeo-Christian values against the dark forces of militant Islam. And that point is not being made. B, the concerned Jewish communities around the world, some of them, such as the people who I'm guiding, these Canadian investors, or that your guest you had just before, vast amounts of resources, financial and connection-wise. If Israel's doing a bad job, and Israel is doing a bad job, then they should also take it upon themselves to do some PR for our people and our land. There's plenty of people such as Saatchi in London who could get up and make very effective campaigns, because yes, the whole world can be wrong and Israel can be right. We are getting crushed right now. So A, the diaspora communities can take it matters to themselves to make the case for Israel, and B, the state of Israel itself needs to have eloquent native English and educated and spokespeople.
And looking back at the war from an insider's point of view, from being inside the IDF, without getting political, how do you see this war in the last two years until the latest ceasefire?
Okay, ceasefire, of course, is not exactly what we're experiencing right now. It's far from a ceasefire. I see that just before this is very personal, obviously, I'm not speaking for anyone except for myself, but just before the war started, if you remember, we were in a very bad shape in the state of Israel. There were mass demonstrations almost every Saturday night in the streets, and the country was really getting torn apart to such an extent that people in elite units, including pilots, were debating whether they should be serving the state, that's the beginning of total anarchy. And that is exactly why our enemy attacked us. One of the many reasons, because of this absolute discord and lack of harmonious coexistence, where we were not finding what we had in common, a commonality, but rather what divided us. So one positive thing about the war, if you can say that, because one man's meat is another man's poison, is it gave us a sharp reality slap in the face. We can't keep on going like this. And at least until relatively recently, it did unite Israelis. Unfortunately, those cracks are starting again, especially with what's happening in Jerusalem today. Well,
let me just tell our viewers who don't know that there is a massive rally in Jerusalem. It's called a prayer rally, but it's a rally against the draft of Haredim and others into the army.
Right, and ironically, it's called a Million-Man March. So they're actually using military terminology. They're also using posters which fake or replicate hostage posters for ultra-Orthodox Jews, in inverted commas, who are have been arrested for draft evasion. It's a very divisive issue, probably the most divisive issue within Israeli society today. And I can tell you that when I was in the army, when I served in my unit, we literally have a cross-section of society. And what gives me hope is if we could only replicate that outside into the non-military world, the civilian world, we'd be in a very good shape. One small example is two of the leading doctors in our unit. One of them is a Torah observant Jew who wears his tzitzit, his ritual fringes out, and he has a kippah, a yarmulke on his head. And he works shoulder to shoulder with another doctor who's super left-wing, has a same-sex partner, pierced ear tattoos, and they are the best of friends, both off the field, and they work together as colleagues on the field as well. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope that people can put aside their differences and focus on what we have in common. And that's the biggest joy, in inverted commas, I received out of the war, because it was quite black and despondent before the war with the divisive harm of what was happening to society within Israel. So I think the war has made us take a step back and look at what we have in common.
So your message to our viewers, to people watching, is one, a plea for unity?
Absolutely. The first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, said that our temple, our land was destroyed because of causeless hatred. It's a term in Hebrew called sinat chinam. And he said it will only ever be have the merit to have our country rebuilt when we focus on something called ahavat chinam, which is causeless love, and focusing on what we have in common and not what divides us.
And as a religiously observant Jew, and your father, as you mentioned, being a rabbi, how do you see the situation in Israel today?
People need to understand it doesn't, again, with the black and white outfits of the old, it doesn't have to be black and white. We can find what Aristotle calls the golden mean, and the famous rabbi physician Maimonides called it the Shrila Zahav, the golden path, where we can find unity in commonality. For example, it's not either I study the holy texts in a yeshiva or I serve in the army. You can do both. They're not mutually contradictory, such as the Hesder organization, where the students take 5 years. There are some ultra-Orthodox now who are drafting into special units in the IDF. Very few on a demographic scale, but it does give hope. And they're getting whatever they want. They have bases with no females. They have ultra kosher food, and I don't quite understand how you can have more kosher than kosher, but they do. They have plenty of time to study the holy text. And we need to understand it's not either or, that we need to find that middle path where you can both be a Torah observant Jew, and most of the leading officers in combat units do wear kippot and are Torah observant Jews, and they're not mutually exclusive. I think that is the hope for the future, to combine what the 19th century German Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch referred to as Torah im derech eretz, Torah with the way of the land. And let us not forget that every rabbi in the Talmud also had a profession and had an honorable work as well, and they refused to take money for the study of Torah. Yochanan was a sandal maker, Yeshua was a blacksmith, etc., etc.
And what does the future hold for you? How do you see your own future now that you have done this amazing thing for the last 2 years?
Well, I would like to spread the word for unity, the word of unity, the hope of unity. I think that the last 2 years has given me tremendous chizuk, or strength. And I was also, like many Israelis, wondering what exactly, where are we going, which direction is the state heading in. But having seen not just in the military, but the civilians who are coming to help us out and bringing food and offering whatever services they could, I think tremendous unity, tremendous respect, and tremendous honor. And that gives me hope for the future. So I'm hoping that on a personal level, that the incoming tourism to Israel will resume. I think the best way to support Israel beyond just worrying is obviously financial if one can, but the most important thing is to come to Israel, see the Israel beyond the media, see the soldiers beneath the helmet, not to give a figurative but a literal hug to our co-religionists, because at the end of the day, we're one big family. So I'm hoping that tourism, as we've been talking about this for years, will finally come back, and we'll be able to focus again on the commonality of both the diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews. Almost all equipment in my unit has been donated by generous diaspora Jews, and we are brothers and we are one family. So I'm hoping that my book will be a success in showing that universality and commonality we have in Israel and abroad. And I'm hoping that tourism will resume, and we should all have health and happiness.
Well, on a personal note, if we can end with this, is that you obviously have the gift of the gab, and you know how to articulate yourself very well. I mean, it would be a no-brainer for you to represent Israel and be an ambassador for Israel all over the world.
Thank you very much for the compliment. I have actually had the honor twice to represent Israel. Once I was worked for the Ministry of Defense in a more of a security-related capacity, but after they heard my English, they also ended up making a lot of speeches to the local community in North America where I was based. And once I served as the head of education for the Jewish Agency for Israel in New York as well. And it was an honor for me to represent the country then, and it will be an honor for me now to stand in front, because you've got to understand, when you go to a university campus, you have three groups. You have the 10% who hate Israel, and they're always going to hate Israel. And it doesn't matter how much logic you throw at them, the haters are going to hate. Then you've got the 10% of people like ourselves who love Israel, but they realize that Israel does have its flaws and does have its issues, but we still love Israel. The problem is the 80% in the middle, who are the TikTok generation, who really don't understand. And which unfortunately includes many Jews and many Gaza Jews. And those are the ones who should be our target audience. There's no use posting into our own echo chambers where everyone just presses like on social media because everyone lives in the same bubble. We need to get out of the bubble and reach those who just simply don't know. The best thing is to bring them to Israel so they can see with their own eyes that we are not an apartheid state and all the wonder of Israel. But failing that is to go out to them and to bring the message that how Israel is a light to the nations, despite all of its difficulties.
Dr. Tuvia Book, it was an honor to host you in the JNS studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you.